If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Greetings, hi, hallo, welcome, dag sê. Ja, nee, hier is ons weer. As we usually say at the Legacy Conversation channel, hello internet. Yeah, today it's me and chatting about music again. But just before we get there, a few points to note. When I was recording this, we had signs of snow on the hills. I'll put a photo in here. I'm trussed up like a chicken. I know. Keep the neck warm. I have to keep the neck warm. Just so that you know, this is supposed to be spring, but we often get these kinds of weather occurrences here in Ireland this time of the year. That's point number one. Point number two, I have for a long time wanted to do this. What we're doing today is I'm going to chat about 10 live double albums. Live, as in that they were recorded while the bands or the groups or the whatevers were doing live shows. So sometimes they are compilations of from different periods, different years even, like in the case of the Eagles live that I'm showing you guys. So what I'll do is I'll show you each of the 10. And once again, I know Legacy Conversations is all about veterans telling their tales, which is terrific. But me being a veteran, I know what impact music has had in the past. So I'm going back to these. And I'll share a little bit more about each of these 10 LPs, double LPs, 10 lives. I was going to do 5, but because of then I thought, okay, then I have to leave this one. So I've made it 10. And then if you guys and girls like this, as julle hiervan hou, laat weet in the comments below. And we can discuss 10 more, or we can discuss 10 others, or not necessarily live. I have box sets and I have other lives that I've added to my collection over the years, blah, 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 blah. You get the drift. Okay, how does that sound to you? Right, so I've waffled enough for starters there. Enough intros, points 1 and points 2, and now it's points important. Let's talk about these 10 different double live albums. Oh, I suppose I better tell you why I'm so fond of double live albums or live albums. Growing up in that era in the 70s in South Africa, going to school, joining the Air Force, there were embargoes of all sorts that we faced on a daily basis. So the big bands never came to South Africa. The big groups, there were boycotts, and I can't even remember what those things were called, those particular boycotts. In any case, so we learned about these groups and these bands via radio stations and DJs, but we couldn't get to concerts. We couldn't get to see the folk in real life. So we bought the live renditions, because these came from the days of the concerts. So it was great to be able to. I used to lie down flat on my back, put the headphones on my head, crank it up, and listen to side 1, and then get up. Unfortunately, you have to get. Those were the days. You couldn't stream them right through. Something that our grandkids won't have a clue about. Although my grandkids, some of them know what the black stuff is that I turn round and round and round on the turntable. Okay. I said, okay, again, didn't I? Fair enough. That used to be one of my favorite sayings long, long ago. Fair enough. Fair enough. And I'll resist or desist using those favorite sayings. So what I'm trying to say is that these live concert albums got embedded in our brains, in my brain, in others' brains. And we enjoyed this. This was I lying flat on my back with my eyes closed, listening to the music. It transported me there. It took me there. The imagination could run wild. But it had to start somewhere. So somewhere for me started at a friend's house. Brian, if you're listening, Brian and Peter, brothers, same school, same everything, same, both of them went to the Navy. I'm still trying to make contact with Brian, try to find him via the Bookface thing, but don't really seem to think that he does social media. Anyway, so the first two that I'm going to show you here, and then I'll add photos as we go along. But the first two were these two. Can you see that? Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Four-Way Street. Why am I showing you these two? I have mentioned in a previous podcast, Atlanta Rhythm Section. So there are the first two that I'm going to mention, and photos will be provided. Why? Because I reckon one of these two, I wouldn't be able to say which of these, but one of these two was probably the first live vinyl double LP that I held in my hands. Not one of his versions, his copies, not my. I got these when I started growing up enough to earn a bit of money and to support myself when it came to buying vinyl. So there are the first two. Thank you, Brian and Peter. You introduced me to both of these, and you introduced me then to the to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. You also introduced me to Supertramp, and I think Crime of the Century was the first one that I held in my hands, but that's a single and it's not live. So we'll get to Supertramp later. We'll get to Supertramp. So that's number 1 and 2. Well, not in that order as in of rank, but just the first two that I actually held in my hands and could sit there and listen to them from start to finish. We often used to do that, come home from school in the afternoons. All weekends, I used to go snook fishing with them. And then we would sit outside and smoke a snook or two. And those were my early days in the Air Force when I did the odd school block down in Cape Town, and I was able to visit them. Okay, so next up, I'm going to show you the first live double that I bought for myself. Can we get focus here? The other two focus nicely. There we go. There we go. You know this one well. I have played music off this particular LP already on the podcast. So the podcast link will be downstairs as well. It's weekly. It's always in conjunction with Legacy Conversations YouTube. I've told you many times before why. Because this very laptop that I'm doing the recordings on was sponsored by Legacy Conversation patrons and friends, and I had change. So I went and bought a year subscription for the podcast so that I can do the weekly recordings. They go out on Friday mornings. Any case, just not long ago, I featured some of Neil Diamond's Hot August Night as the outro for one of the podcasts. Okay, so why is this included? Because I love it. And as I said, it was because it is the first live double LP that I bought. I bought three. My first three that I bought. One was Rod Stewart, Atlantic Crossing, single, not live. The other was also a double, which we'll talk about on another day. Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. Terrific piece of music. And then this very copy. This copy was bought, I would reckon, in 1970. Oh, my face is even going. 1978. Yeah, probably 1978. Maybe 1979. I think 1978. Let's just say that's been in my possession. That particular copy of Neil Diamond's Art August Night. Right. Next up now, these are in no order. They're just random. Eagles Live. Some great stuff on here. I don't think there are many people that don't have this in their collection. This was more or less when they were at their best, tearing each other apart and wanting to slaughter each other. I will put video footage, not video. I will put, oops, it's frozen. There we go. It's unfrozen. Okay, so that's the fourth double live that I'm sharing with you. Okay, the next two are sort of linked. For me, mentally, will always be linked because they were both done at the same venue. Eric Clapton, Just One Night at Budokan in Japan. Some people say he wasn't at his best. I particularly enjoyed this. This was my real first introduction of Eric Clapton live. It was actually, I think, to a degree, my first real introduction to Eric Clapton. Obviously, I have many more Eric Clapton LPs, and I've spoken about him and I've seen him live in concert, and which was one of my most disappointing ever occurrences. So I was out of love with Eric Clapton for a long time, but I'm back enjoying his music, and I will record that one too to share on the podcast at some point, some of the cuts, some of the tracks. All right, so next up, how could we link them? How could we not link them? It's called At Budokan. There we go. You know this fellow, don't you? You know this fellow. I'm trying to get away from the reflection. Bob Dylan at Budokan. Bob Dylan at Budokan. There you have it. So that's why the two of them will be linked in my mind forever. I love some of the stuff on here too. Of course, the critics criticized and said it wasn't his best. There's always a critic that'll say it wasn't his best, but for us, that was starved of live music shows, these were the best thing that we could lay our hands on. So for us, they live. They still live till today. Now, the next one is inextricably linked to Bob Dylan. Why not? Joanne Byers, Live from Every Stage. For me, I've sort of half and half written about it in the past. One of the fantasy concerts that I would spend a lot of money to go and see would be the young Bob Dylan and Joanne Byers. They were together for periods during the Rolling Thunder Review. There are the odd tracks of them doing things like Blowing in the Wind together on stage. Can you imagine going to a concert where they sing together for a whole show? Can you imagine that? Well, in my mind, in my head, it still rules. On this particular double live, she does a number of great Bob Dylan tracks too. And I have actually ended off a podcast once with, I like ending podcasts with long songs. And then the next day I'll come and play the next podcast a week later. I'll open the show then with the same artist that I did the previous time around. Billy Rose and the Jack of Hearts, a fantastic rendition of it. But then there's other fantastic renditions on here of Bob Dylan's favorite cuts and songs and whatevers. So yeah, those were the days when she was the queen and he was the king. I still say Bob Dylan, to my mind, should be knighted. I know he's an American. I wrote a petition to Queen Elizabeth II while she was still around, suggesting that she knight Bob Dylan. I mean, since when is how many others do you know of musicians that have been given the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, there are many people on this planet less deserving that have got it. But yes, I believe he should be knighted. Sir Bob. I often refer to him as Sir Bob. Just for the fun of it. Why not? Anyway, next up, I said I was going to mention Supertramp, Paris. I absolutely love this LP. This is one of those that I periodically have to listen to the whole thing over from start to end. And then when I get to this favorite song of mine, Soapbox Opera, I have to listen to that over and over and over too. I just absolutely love it. This particular LP has a history. I used to, before we left South Africa, I used to occasionally go into Radio Algoa studios and go and watch the producer of Joel Stewart's evening shows. And I mentioned that I had this, and he said to me, bring it in. On his midnight, late night shows, he would, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was Lance Duplessis. He would play good music on he used to take over at midnight. And when he heard I had this was played on the Eastern Cape's airwaves, this particular LP. He took cuts off of this and played. So yeah, there we go. It's had its own moment of glory in the Eastern Cape sun, right? Or the Eastern Cape starlight. This is number 9. Queen Live Killers. Yeah, this is sort of when Freddie was at his best, before the big AC, whatever you want to call that sickness, started claiming his life. Okay, so also one of those that you put on and you just want to live it all, because Queen, they were great. One or two of my friends couldn't stand Queen. However, I didn't have a problem with Queen. Could quite enjoy their music, and I have quite a few of their other single LPs as well. There you have it. That's my 9 so far, because the 10th one that I was going to play you, I don't know what I've done with it. I've misplaced it. That was Simon and Garfunkel's Central Park, that concert. But so I've got to substitute another 10th one, which would have come into play in any case. Rod Stewart, absolutely live. The man could. The man could. There we go. I will put photos in, as I said, of every single one of the front cover. There we go. Rod Stewart, rocking Rod Stewart, as he was called, the man himself. So that was 10 double live albums. And now you can tell me, where do we go? Do we talk about box sets? Do we talk about more live albums? I've got enough here to do 10 more lives, probably enough to do 2 more. But then there's triple LP sets. I'm sure you'll have to agree with me. The most famous triple LP set has to be this one. I'll pop a photo in here, or I'll even open it up, show you the gatefold. Bold fold, call it whatever you want to be, fold, big fold. Look at that. Can you see all of that? There we go. All right. So you wanted me to talk about that? You wanted me to talk about studio albums, double lives? No, not double lives. Double studio albums. I'll pop that back in its spot. For instance, how could I not mention Pink Floyd's The Wall? You see, we can go anywhere and everywhere. How could I not mention Pink Floyd's individual albums? We can talk about it. We can debate this way and that way, and that's what this is about. You tell me if there's any comments below. We can take it from there, and we can either do another session about live albums and or double lives or triple lives, or we can talk about individual LPs, individual groups. It's up to you to help me out here. This is what it's about. I keep saying it's about sharing the memories of what you guys and girls enjoyed in that era. Music in the bush was very important, as many have said. Music at squadron levels or base levels played a part. I'm not talking about marching bands only. I'm talking about friendships created over, oh, you've got that. Can I borrow that? Or no, oh, you got that. Can I record that? Or, oh, you've got that. Where did you get it? Like, for instance, one or two band LPs that I can mention. Peter Sarstedt, Where Do You Go to My Lovely? That particular LP, that other naughty track on it, that was banned. I had a copy. Don't ask me. I won't tell you. Anyway, that's enough waffle from me for one day. Let me know what you think about this. If it doesn't work on this channel, then we can rethink it and put it over on the alternate platforms for you to have a look-see at over on there. I'm wanting to drift towards the point where I actually sneak bits of music in. But I can't do that on YouTube. I cannot, because I think 8 seconds is the maximum that they will allow you per song. Now, if I do 2 or 3 different bands, 8 seconds, they might cause a strike against us. And as I've said before, dare I get a copyright strike against Legacy Conversations, I will get struck out and struck off. So I'm not going down that road. I don't want to go down that road. But the conversation around music could work fantastically well. So from me, as we always say here at Legacy Conversations, until we chat again, God bless.